I was surprised by a series of video messages from Trump haters saying that Ayers is leaving, kicked out, thrown out of Minnesota, and that this is a complete failure of Trump's policy. As usual, they say, as usual, he failed with his policy. This discussion focuses on evicting illegal immigrants from the United States. What I thought. By the way, it's not only those who write or speak with hatred toward Trump who say this, but also those who pretend to support him. Well, here and there, Trump failed, got into scandals. Well, of course he's a good guy, but he does a lot of foolish things. With all their might, in every way, they show that if it were them, they wouldn't have done that. Who does this? Well, we have this pseudo-right guy in Brooklyn, someone like Boria Pincus, and then in San Francisco, there's Liu Bursky. Like, I'm much smarter than Trump. Well, okay, let's say he's 4.5 times dumber than me, maybe even more. Well, of course, more. Yeah, it's all right, guys, more than 4.5 times. I also found a very talkative ossel on the internet. Well, I mean, a Democrat, I don't want to offend animals, never. But the one who apparently declares himself to be for common sense, he wrote everywhere that he's for common sense. But after listening to him, I suddenly realized that he's for some other kind of common sense, because the kind of common sense I'm used to has nothing to do with this. Just listen for yourself.
Trump is basically driven by two burning passions, a passion for money and a passion for himself.
This person's name is Chamo, which is an extremely jerkish expression. Igor Eidman, who told the world that he looks at the world, from Berlin, without rose-colored glasses. By the way, I've always been interested in Jews who went to live in Germany, what they hope to find there. But anyway, so the without rose-colored glasses, Eidman says the following.
Narcissistic self-obsession with vanity, that is greed and vanity. It's already been a year since Trump and his family, who are just as greedy, by the way, have actually been managing or can largely manage the resources of a huge country. I read a very interesting review about the corruption aspect. Igor, could you tell us in more detail how these people are getting rich thanks to their position? And most importantly, why? The things that, for example, would inevitably lead to a mega scandal in Europe, to court cases in the United States may be perceived negatively by society, but don't lead to any legal consequences.
Of course, for this, they should be taken to court or at the very least get punched in the face. But Igor is so unimportant to anyone that no one will spend time or accordingly money on him. But let's get back to Minnesota, where apparently hornless goat creatures are telling some kind of fairy tales. We are foolish, so we hear a fairy tale and go check the facts, right? Yes, so let's think about why Immigration and Customs Enforcement and Border Patrol were even brought into Minnesota, what they were doing there. Let's try to figure this out. So, paid mercenaries of the Democratic Party, that's a fact. At least some of the so-called rioters were paid and came from other states. I didn't make this up, and it's not red propaganda or, by the way, not Republican propaganda either. So these people then, they threatened the lives of Immigration and Customs Enforcement workers who came to arrest criminal elements staying in the country illegally. Just listen to that. These are criminal elements who are in the country illegally. Their federal government wants to catch them, especially those who have already been in prison for committing a crime here on our territory, and deport them. And the Democratic Party is doing everything possible to, God forbid, support Trump's statement. That didn't work out. That's how it is. So the local police were supposed to provide security. The local police are always there. Well, no one except the local police. Maybe the sheriff, maybe some, well, for example, guards, what they call the guard. Yes, the states themselves, yes, they don't have the right to do that. Simply no one can enter another state's territory and start doing that. That is, they are obligated by their oath to provide security. But the mayor of Minneapolis, the governor, and also the state attorney general forbade their subordinate agencies from providing security, protecting, intervening, or doing anything, even when they see that the federal agents are being attacked. Moreover, as they say, by overwhelming, or rather superior forces, not overwhelming, but superior forces. This was and still is a blatant violation of the Constitution, the law, and so on, but for now, the federal authorities, as they say, are dealing with it, because we must not do anything illegal, even when the other side breaks the law. We need to correct it, and that is lawful. Trump sent, in addition to the 2,000 personnel who were sent there to Minnesota, another 1,000 specifically to provide them with security. So these 2,000 continue to do their work. And an additional 1,000 were supposed to provide security for those 2,000 people instead of the local police. They carry out, so to speak, the capture and transfer to special prisons for deportation. That means those who not only cross the border illegally, but also committed crimes on the territory of the United States of America. And 1,000 people are assigned. They're being protected, meaning if the municipal police and the state guard take over the protection, then these 1,000 aren't needed. One of the main obstacles that Minnesota put up was a ban on federal, let's say, representatives of federal authority from taking convicted criminals out of prisons. That is, those who have already committed crimes, have been convicted, put in prison, and are being held there. Yeah, why should we keep them in our country? We should just take them and send them the hell out. Let them serve out their sentence in some other country's prison, and then let them do whatever they want with them there. That's not our problem. Well, no, absolutely not something like that. Can you imagine those terrible feds deporting our beloved criminals from our country? We want them to keep living here, among us. Well, with us. I don't know. After arriving in Minneapolis, so the king of the border, as we call him here, so Coleman, the state and the city agreed to let the feds into the prisons. I don't know how he twisted their arms there. What he promised them, what he did, whether he scared them or bribed them, I don't know. Well, bribed, probably not. So they allowed them to come in, to enter the prisons, to take the criminals, and even more if they reported that they had a certain criminal, and the feds didn't pick him up within 48 hours as agreed, they would hold him longer, so that A's could have time to come and pick them up. In Minneapolis, the police handle it themselves. Barricades that, mercenaries of the Democratic Party are building on the road so that ICE can't get through. That is, the police stopped ignoring the actions of the hooligans. They're against the federal police. Well, let's call them A's, although it's not just A's, there's a bunch of other stuff too. Yeah, Border Patrol and so on. Yes, agreements have been signed with the prison system for cooperation, and Comer decided to send the extra, now unnecessary, 700 people to other locations, not the 1,800. I'll explain why in a moment. The reason they're being sent is because similar operations are happening there, and they are needed there. Does this look like a retreat to you, like a defeat? Like Trump gave up and canceled his policy? All right, now let's look at the real facts. Take a look at this short video about those whom Minnesota is protecting. So, for example, Somalika flew home for the holidays and took a little cash with her so she'd have something to buy snacks at home. Well, right.
Right, no, that's correct, you're right. No, this is all my property. You can't just open the MEM like that. We followed the rules, the bag triggered an inspection, and we need to describe the contents. No, this cash is for my family. Do you hear me? I sent it home to Cow Editor. Yes?
Such flights from Minnesota were carried out every day for several years. And so the bills are clean and new because bandits and pirates in Somalia don't like old bills. I'll show you something else amazing. I was so happy when I found it. So just bear with me for another minute, and I'll show you now. By the way, the police officers themselves in Minneapolis, actually all over Minnesota, have expressed several times their desire to perform their duties and responsibilities and have demanded from their superiors the right and opportunity to protect the federal agents. And some of the police officers even applied to transfer from the local police to Immigration and Customs Enforcement, but now the situation has improved. Well, not completely, of course, but still, the police officers stopped going to apologize to their colleagues for their inaction. They used to feel absolutely terrible about themselves. You might ask why. So, does that mean Minnesota politicians and other Democrats need to support thieves and criminals? But how personally? Where's the logic in that? So this very thing, common sense, that's what I'm talking about. I'll explain now. We're talking about hundreds of billions across the country, and part of that money comes back, what we call kickbacks, comes back into the coffers of the Democratic Party and into the personal pockets of politicians. You probably think that I'm saying this without any evidence, that I'm just talking, just running my mouth like, to put it mildly, the Democrats do. No, but just so you understand, this is the United States Senate and experts, I mean, a whole range of them, who are talking about what's happening with our money, and in especially large amounts, which have been collected through taxes. Our money, this is what's happening with it, with the money.
Where this money is going, I mean, the money is going. We know where some of it went in Minnesota. It went abroad to Somalia, to fake NGOs. We know where it went. In some other states, too. California gave away millions, billions of dollars about the Hamas NGO. Where? Well, $1 trillion across the whole country. Where is this money going?
I appreciate that question because most people don't ask it. It goes to terrorism, to child trafficking, to drugs, to terrorism. And then it's used to buy luxury items, cars, bags, houses. All of this is financed by people like me who pay taxes.
So you're telling me that an electrician who goes to work every day, clocks in, works hard, and tries to earn just enough to pay the rent, maybe have 1 or 2 kids, put food on the table, his tax money is used to buy other people luxury items, cars, yachts, whatever, and it will also go to fund terrorism and child trafficking. That's right. Is it really $1 trillion a year on these things?
115 million in an hour.
$115 million an hour.
If you're not shocked, then nothing will impress you anymore. $115 million an hour, stolen by a system organized by the Democratic Party of the United States of America. You don't even need to hang them, gentlemen. They should be sent to North Korea to be fed to the dogs, and this money goes to finance pirates in Somalia. Well, it's a very, very important thing for us for Hamas terrorists, and it's even more important for the mercenaries of the Democratic Party on the streets of Minneapolis, for Antifa, for Black Lives Matter, for election campaigns, to pay Kamala Harris, I don't know, for bringing in illegal immigrants to the United States of America, for increasing crime in American cities, for spreading racism, hatred towards white people, for gender reassignment surgeries for children, and other important and useful things for those who hate our country. This is what the mayor of Minneapolis, the attorney general, the governor of Minnesota, and the rest of the Democrats in America are fighting for. But who else is fighting against America and for money from the Democrats? Who is it? Who is it? I'm sure you're interested to find out.
In 2016, during the American elections, Putin ordered his intelligence agents to help Donald Trump get that position.
They really want to get paid more money, so they make things up, whatever comes to mind, hoping they'll get a bigger payout.
If Trump has been recruited, then he is a documented agent of the KGB and Federal Security Service.
They drink champagne there every day because Trump does so much for Putin that Putin just needs a cup of coffee and some champagne.
But Shenderovich doesn't get paid because, frankly, nobody needs him at all.
They were talking about how Trump received $187 million and at the same time Vitkov received $31 million. Basically, these are the minimum estimates, just sort of as a gift from the United Arab Emirates.
So, gentlemen, it turns out that right before our eyes, Trump and Vitkov are receiving gifts from the Emirates. Well, or maybe from Saudi Arabia, maybe from Russia, or maybe even from China. Just like Biden and the Clintons, the Democratic Party remains silent, aware but quiet, either ignoring the issue or focused on what they consider more important matters. Senator Murphy talked about it, kind of, and then got busy with more important things like counting the money he stole, like counting cash from Somalia, or for Somalia we don't even know anymore. "Stop thief," shouts the thief, pointing at someone else with one finger or two fingers. And what is Trump really doing? I mean, Minnesota, and in general, deporting illegals from America.
President Trump's Ministry of Internal Affairs. His Department of Homeland Security just dropped an absolutely colossal $38 billion bombshell, which is right now sending the entire far-left flank into absolute panic. In fact, ladies and gentlemen, take a look at this. Mass deportations. A brand new internal memo from the Department of Homeland Security reveals that Immigration and Customs Enforcement is planning a major expansion of its detention system in order to, quote, carry out mass deportations by the end of 2026.
That means no one backed down, no one gave up their position. On the contrary, they achieved their goal in Minnesota and are continuing to take action.
The memorandum calls for the creation of 8 megacenters, possibly even Make America Great Again centers, each designed to hold up to 10,000 detainees, 16 regional processing centers capable of accommodating up to 1,500 detainees for short-term stays, as well as 10 existing turnkey facilities where operations are already underway.
There is a large-scale expansion underway, not a winding down of the operation. A large-scale expansion of operations to remove illegal immigrants brought into the country by Biden.
But now, in response to this news, congressional Democrats have just tried to completely shut down the Department of Homeland Security. Right now, we have what can only be described as a partial government shutdown. The Department of Homeland Security has been closed. The Democrats did this because they want to protect all their dearly beloved illegal immigrants. But will this shutdown of the Department of Homeland Security really be able to stop mass deportations? So, dear friends, listen to what none other than Tom Homan had to say about this developing situation this morning.
Does this funding freeze in any way affect your ability to conduct immigration operations across the country?
No, it doesn't affect it, and Immigration and Customs Enforcement continues to enforce the law across the country. They are already funded. Now, Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers won't be getting paid, but it seems like they're getting used to it, so no. The immigration mission, the reason President Trump was elected, continues. We have the safest border in the country's history. We have a record number of arrests and deportations, and this will continue.
The Democrats stopped the budget from being passed. But not really, after all, the United States president is not that stupid. Despite the claims of this one, who is a donkey, a Democrat, happy a donkey, so he's not that stupid after all. The United States president understood that they would do this and included it in the already adopted law in fine print. The Democrats will say it no matter what happens. Operations related to United States security, the border, criminals, well, crossing the border without permission. Excuse me. That's a crime. That's a criminal offense. It will continue no matter what, even if everything else is defunded. And the Democrats suddenly found themselves in a tough spot.
That Donald Trump was recruited by the Soviet Union's Committee for State Security back in Soviet times.
Thank you to the State Committee for State Security of the Soviet Union from the bottom of my heart.
Last week, you announced that the months-long operation known as Metro Surge in Minnesota is winding down. The Immigration Service, of course, will maintain a presence in the state, but not at the level we've seen in recent weeks if the situation continues to wind down. When is this operation expected to end?
Well, look, as for this, we've already withdrawn well over 1,000 people, and by Monday or Tuesday we'll withdraw a few hundred more, returning to our original numbers. Except for those agents who are investigating fraud, they will stay there and continue their work until the agents investigating the church case are finished. Where people entered that church, they will stay there and see the case through to the end. There will be a small security force operation, so-called RFQ, who will respond when our agents are on assignment and they are surrounded by agitators and the situation gets out of control. And they will stay for a short time to make sure that coordination and agreement with local and state law enforcement agencies are in place and that they are responding to the threat to public safety.
So they sent 2,000 to protect another 1,000 now. Since the state is taking over immigration and customs enforcement protection, it's not necessary. The extra 1,000 out of that 1,000, 700 have already left. Maybe another 100 will leave. And the remaining, well, about 200 if I'm counting correctly, will stay for special missions, and the 2,000 will continue their work as originally planned. So where is the terrible, catastrophic, epical defeat of Trump?
I have a feeling, I don't know what it's connected to, that in reality Trump is still in some kind of critical dependence on Putin.
But I, Mr. Bekoff, know what it's connected to. You have lied so much, said so many stupid and vile things, Mr. Analyst, that now you have to say it's just a feeling, not facts, just a feeling, and that you don't know what it's connected to. Like, there's absolutely no evidence, but still what I said before, I'll say it again, but kind of without any proof at all, like, not even a bit, just sort of shyly let one slip. By the way, shy fart monocle is actually a good description for this titan of Russian wordplay. And the conversation partner, he gladly with pleasure inhales it.
Putin has some levers of influence over Trump that we don't know about yet. As soon as these levers come to light, American foreign and domestic policy will experience a serious shock.
When Dibakov asked to go home to Kyrgyzstan, the internal and external manifestations of digestion and the genius of near-semantic wordplay will immediately become clearly visible to us. Ladies and gentlemen, what about Minnesota?
I believe things are headed in the right direction and will continue that way.
It's time to draw a bold line, a thick line under the lies, the nonsense, and some of the facts that Goebbels' followers, including Russian-speaking ventriloquists, are mixing together, working off grants, visas, access to high society, and mingling among the initiated.
Governor Tim Walz has absolutely surrendered. Governor Tim Walz has completely and unconditionally capitulated to President Trump and Tom Homan. He allowed local police in Minnesota, both in Minneapolis and in other cities of the state, to provide comprehensive support and assistance to immigration and customs enforcement whenever this agency needs their help or support. But as Tom Homan just stated, if Walz breaks this agreement, we can expect another surge of Minnesota troops, which will flood Gobble, will flood the state with even more federal officers, as we saw about 8 weeks ago.
We fixed it. They should be saying thank you. The country has become safer because of this, and President Trump supports another victory. President Trump wins every day he wins, and I'm just proud to be a small part of this administration.
The president quickly surprises me because what you have achieved in Minnesota proves that working with local sheriffs and jails makes the community safer. But here in New York, where I am, Governor Hochul wants to get rid of the 287G program, which allows and ensures this cooperation. And also the bill passed by the Maryland legislature just a few seconds. But what is your reaction to the Democrats in those states?
Well, New York is my home state, and here is Governor Hochul. Listen to the recording. She said that for the last 6 months, immigration and customs enforcement should focus on criminals and forget about everyone else. Immigration and customs enforcement should deal with criminals, and then she doesn't let us into the prisons. She can't explain it. It's just that politicians are the worst at politics. They put politics above public safety. That's the point.
I agree with Tom. The Democrats are playing political games, and we need to think about the safety of the people in our country. And now tell me, after all this, do you think what we were told? These, well, donkeys, I already said. We need to come up with another word. Yeah, stinky goats. That ICE lost, that he's running away from Minnesota. Now all programs for taking capital out of the country are being stopped. Or do you think that even with the resistance of the Democratic Party, we are able to deport those who got into the country without our permission? Well, write to me, ladies and gentlemen, because I'm always interested to read what you think about the topics I bring up and about. Well, I have a certain perspective, a certain point of view, and about this point of view, whether it's positive, negative, a remark, anything at all, I'm always happy to respond. Sometimes I reply in an ironic way. Well, that's just my snake-like nature. Goodbye.